What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the J Area Podcast. My name is Jose Ramos Jr., and a lot to unpack based off of what occurred on this past week episode of Monday Night Raw. Primarily, I will be discussing the closing moments of what occurred on Raw, and I think we all know what it's about. Uncle Howdy and his group, his new family, now going by the name of the Wyatt Six, having one of, if not the craziest, most anticipated, I struggle to find words really to describe it. That level of destruction. You know, they promised that they would bring a massacre to Monday Night Raw. I, for one, believed that they really delivered on that promise. For weeks, we saw several QR codes, not only on Raw, but on SmackDown, on NXT, on PLEs. We were wondering, when were they finally going to reveal themselves? When was this group going to debut? And they did so this past Monday on Raw. When I tell you the level of anticipation in our household leading up to this event, it was something that I was looking forward to. I know others in my family were also looking forward to it, just because of that aspect, that element of mystery. You know, a lot of puzzles, a lot of hints regarding those QR codes. So having to place it together, putting it all out there, and considering what was being told. Obviously, there was a lot of rumors and speculation over the course of the internet discourse, but it always came back to, what are they showing me here in front of myself? You got to take what they give you. I think from the very beginning, we all knew it was going to be Uncle Howdy ever since the conclusion of that Bray Wyatt documentary. But to see them take this slow and methodical pace in terms of revealing all of these hints, to the point where we already started recognizing that this wasn't just going to be Uncle Howdy, it was going to be Uncle Howdy and friends, his new family. And having it be a representation of the Bray Wyatt character, of the different characters that he created in the Firefly Funhouse. You have Rambling Rabbit, you had Mercy, you had Abby, Huskus the Pig. Seeing those embodiments come to real life, obviously being portrayed by different members of the roster, this has a lot of potential. And if you would have kept up with the YouTube channel and seen the other videos that I've been posting, they have to play this very smart. We take a look back at the WWE and its history of these supernatural kind of creepy characters that they've presented, and 9 times out of 10 they kind of run their course and they overstay their welcome. They can't fall into this trap of pushing them too far to the moon and already having them against main event caliber stars. You want to be able, again, to take a slow and methodical pace with these characters. Make them mean something. We need to know why. Why now? What is their motive? What is their MO? I'm, for one, very invested in stories like this. I know from the outside looking in, professional wrestling is among one of the outlandish and silliest things out there. Not only does it balance itself in the form of sport, but in the form of entertainment. That's why for so many decades, they would refer to it as sports entertainment. There's this physicality to it. Obviously, there's athleticism. We know it's choreographed. I mean, that's a tale as old as time. But one of the aspects that keeps me coming back for more is the development of stories and characters. I mentioned that pro wrestling can be outlandish, and it should be. It's an escape from reality. We love the stories in which it's based in reality. But every now and then, it's okay to be surprised and sprinkle in a little bit of dosage of some form of fantasy. I look at these supernatural beings, these characters that aren't shy to stretch the limits of what reality is. You go back to different gimmicks, like a Papa Shango in the early 90s. For people who don't remember Papa Shango, this was like a voodoo character who came out to the ring, obviously in like a witch doctor garb, and he had this staff, and it would pour out some smoke every now and then. One of the more notable and infamous moments from Papa Shango was when he was able to make the Ultimate Warrior, vomit on himself. He kind of did a little bit of a possession, some voodoo dark magic on The Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, I wasn't around for that, but being that I have, all this footage at our disposal, whether it's on the internet, whether it's on Peacock or the network, you're able to go back and see what it was like at that time. To see them be able to stretch the imagination and not only dive into what reality is, but create these larger than life characters. It's important to realize that pro wrestling isn't just about guys hitting each other over the head with steel chairs, which is what the common assumption is with pro wrestling. It is very much like a soap opera. The stories that they tell, over time, we get invested in these characters. I look at Uncle Howdy. I do not expect it to be along the lines of a Papa Shango, obviously. I actually hope they don't go the supernatural route. What I am anticipating, what I would hope, is that they take these characters. We look at how they've been presented so far. Uncle Howdy looks to be another follower of Bray Wyatt. He wants to take the teachings that were passed down from Bray Wyatt and do something with it. Each of these members of this Wyatt 6 faction have been abandoned in some form or fashion. We look at Dexter Lumis, who had his family in the way, and seemingly Dexter Lumis has lost his way. So who is here to welcome him in? Uncle Howdy. You look at Nikki Cross, who had a family. She was with Sanity all those years in NXT. Then she came to the main roster, became a superhero, lost her friends, lost her partners, and eventually lost her way. Welcomed to the Wyatt 6. Joe Gacy had his family in NXT, the Schism, but they were disbanded. Eventually, that story came to a close. He lost his way. Uncle Howdy. And then you go to Rowan. Eric Rowan, who was a part of that original incarnation of the Wyatt family, having literally lost 2 of his brothers in that Wyatt family. Welcomed by Uncle Howdy. And of course, you talk about Uncle Howdy. Taylor Rotunda, better known as Bo Dallas. I mean, if you don't know the story by now, I don't know what to tell you. Bray Wyatt meant so much, of course, to his family, but just to the current status of the WWE. When he returned in 2022, this was right at the beginning of the Triple H regime, when he was taking over creative. I would like to think that Bray Wyatt would have been a focal point of what this current product would be. Obviously, you can make the claim that he could have been the next Undertaker. Now, I know what that sounds like. That's a lot to be asked and a lot to be said. But if you put him in the sense of today's WWE, he's a superstar who doesn't necessarily need a championship. The presence alone, the character work alone, is a marquee. He doesn't need those other accolades. You add this extra element, of course, sometimes of the supernatural. He was supposed to be a pillar. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. With this current faction, the way it is implemented, the way it is structured, has so much potential. And it's only been, several hours at the time of this recording since their debut. It was one of the most shocking, one of the most amazing debuts, not only regarding a group, but just in the history of the WWE. And I know I mentioned guys like The Undertaker and Kane, who both had tremendous careers, tremendous debuts, and those were another 2 characters who were on the supernatural side. So that begs the question, why is it that professional wrestling is so consistently imposed on having these supernatural beings? Well, it's like I said, professional wrestling, at the heart of it, really is like a comic story. These are larger than life characters that are being presented to us on TV. And at some times, you look at any form of comic book or movies or television, you're going to have these elements of supernatural because there's just that interest. We as human beings are attracted to that. When there's things that we don't understand or things that we can't explain, we want to look for an explanation. We want to dive more into it. That's why you have conspiracy theorists. That's why you have ghost hunters. Because sometimes when you can't explain something, it becomes much more appealing. That's why there was so much hype around this group. If done right, this, like I said, has a lot of potential to be one of the biggest groups the WWE has ever produced. But their track record does precede them. Not only when it comes to stables and factions, but when it comes to these type of gimmicks, they do have a shelf life. I'm hoping they're strategic with it, of course. You can't have these guys go after the biggest names. Obviously, we can't have them go up against Cody Rhodes. We can't have them go up against Damian Priest, Seth Rollins. It's too early for that. You got to establish that level of threat, that daunting, almost demented aura that is associated with them. And I mentioned earlier before, I don't want them to go the supernatural route. I think you should base this in how that original Wyatt family had came. It was a cult. Not necessarily that they were brainwashed, but these people have bought into what Uncle Howdy is selling. Essentially, they've bought into the Bray Wyatt way. And there's nothing more frightening than the capabilities of what a man or woman has done when they've fallen. When someone is pushed to their breaking point, realizing they have nothing to lose, realizing that nothing can hurt them, what they're willing to put their body through as a means to a cause. Look at other, popular cult leaders. The Manson family, Jim Jones, Waco, Texas, David Koresh. What do all these guys have in common? They were convincing, right? They appealed to the masses. They took advantage of weakened individuals searching for a purpose much bigger than them. That's why these type of gimmicks really fascinate me. And I'm hoping if you're listening to this podcast, you have some level of interest as well, because it really dives into the inner psyche of the human mind. This is compelling. I know back in the day when we were all younger, we had our superhero characters. For example, in the 80s, there was Hulk Hogan. In the early 2000s, there was John Cena. But this is real. Manipulation, psychology, Stockholm Syndrome. That's something they've even, addressed with the whole Alpha Academy story. And speaking of the Alpha Academy, what about Chad Gable? Everyone's talking about him getting killed on live TV. Obviously, I don't think that's the case. But it's just that level of shock value that they were willing to go through in terms of this debut. It's just, I cannot fathom what the process in the writer's room, the creative meetings, when it came down to this. Of course, they had several weeks, months to prepare. But the preparation, the execution that the WWE and their team were able to do, not only on the camera side, but just production-wise, the way everything was set up in the rooms. Obviously, you have to have the lighting. You have to have the talent prepared. Well done. Well done. I'm a huge fan of horror. As you can see, if you're for the video audience, you can see I'm wearing my Jason Voorhees Camp Crystal Lake t-shirt. I thought it was very fitting that we had that horror element. And that's why I think there's always that blend, between horror and between pro wrestling. A lot of times, more times than not, I've encountered or I've seen pro wrestling fans also being horror fans, because there's something about that wonder, that level of disbelief that you have to give into when following these stories. You have to be able to lend your imagination to whatever story they are hoping to rope you in and get you invested in. And I'll tell you right now, hook, line, and sinker. They got me. Take my money. I'll pay for it. I'm so invested, not only in the story of the Uncle Howdy story, but ever since the Bray Wyatt stuff. When Bray Wyatt first debuted in the WWE in 2013, alongside Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, it was something different. And then he would evolve and continue to evolve. And fast forward to The Fiend, when there was a time when Bray Wyatt was kind of, getting a little stale character-wise, and you already kind of were growing a little tired. You knew what he was going to say. Obviously, he was going to lose because they never really pushed him. And then he brings out The Fiend and that Firefly Funhouse gimmick. Another perfect example of finding a way to reinvent yourself for the better. And then, obviously, he takes time off, comes back in 2022 with an updated version. Really what it seemed like was a version of Bray Wyatt the Man, Wyndham, on TV. And I remember I just watched the debut of this Wyatt 6 group, and I can't help but just have this level of sadness, because he should be there. It should be him and his brother Taylor running this group. I look at them and I thought, man, that could have been, and I know it's not fair to compare, trust me, I know, but it's like you could have had some kind of Undertaker and Kane type of lore when it came to those guys. Unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not what was in the cards. And now they're running with this. If they want to, and I've talked about it in other videos. Check out the YouTube channel, by the way, if you want to support. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. Way to go, guys. Really appreciative, really grateful for you guys, by the way. But if you watch the other content, you would know that we've talked about who could be that 6th member. A lot of speculation on that name, because some people say it's the Wyatt 6. On pieces of merchandise like t-shirts, it says the Wyatt 6, as in like ill, S-I-C-K-S, with the number 6 in place of that last S. So is it 6 members, or is it 6 as in ill? And if it is intended to be 6 members, we were introduced to 5. So who is the 6th member? Are we introducing a 6th member? There's 2 theories out there, and that's one, we could be seeing someone else join the family. Someone like an Alexa Bliss. That's been a name very popular. Someone that everyone has been mentioning and clamoring for a return. But whenever she's ready, obviously because she had a baby, whenever she's ready, she's more than welcome back to TV, in my opinion. Or the other theory, and I would be okay if it's this theory, and that 6th member is left open. It's vacated because it was intended for Wyndham. It was intended for Bray. I'm more than okay with that, because even as constructed now, look at how the family would fall into it. You have Uncle Howdy, who is the main, right? The leader. You can have some tag team in the division, whether it's some combination of Eric Rowan with Joe Gacy or Dexter Lumis, or vice versa. Then you have someone for the mid-card. Again, some combination of Dexter Lumis or Joe Gacy. I think it would make more sense to have Joe Gacy as the singles. I just like the combination of Dexter and Rowan. I think they complement each other in terms of size. And then for the women's division, you have Nikki Cross. Right there, it's already balanced. You have someone in the women's division, the tag division, the mid-card division, and the main event scene. I don't think we should send them to the main event scene yet. In fact, I don't even think Uncle Howdy should wrestle. I think, maybe not yet, but I feel like they should hold him off. Keep him alike to like a Charles Manson. Now, a lot of scrutiny and a lot of controversy surrounded that case, and I won't get into it too deep, obviously, because this is pro wrestling. This isn't true crime. But a lot of people would talk about how Charles Manson had his people do his bidding. They did his work for him. I think that's what you do with this family. Have Uncle Howdy in the shadows. Have him in the background. Let the others do the dirty work. That's how you build up heat. And eventually, when we develop a feud, we develop a story where the baby faces are trying to conquer the heels, and eventually over time, because I don't think they should rush it, but over time when they finally get to it, then you have their version of the final boss. Sorry, Rock, I don't mean The Rock, but their version of a final boss, and that's when you have Uncle Howdy come out and say, all right, I'll do it myself. That is compelling. I would much rather look forward to that than to have Uncle Howdy just up front have the first match. No, I think what you do is you have the family compete for him. He's showing them the way. He's freed them. And now, in a sense of loyalty, this is how they can repay him. They'll do his bidding. They'll fight those that want to dispute his teachings. They'll fight those who want to dispute him. Because I feel like the way they've been leading up to it, he can't do no wrong in their eyes. And that's what a manipulator, that's what a cult leader can do. They can do no wrong in the eyes of their loyal subjects. A lot of rumors as to who they can face first. Go ahead and comment down below who you guys think should be that first feud. Who should be the first? I think it would be a first few individuals that should go up against them, because I think one guy alone is tough already. I mean, they took out a whole gorilla position. There were speculation that it could be Chad Gable, because in the last QR code there were the initials CG for Chad Gable. Obviously, we saw what happened to Chad. And he's alone now. He doesn't have his own family. Maybe they want to recruit. I don't know. Doubtful, but it is a theory. And I always go back to that level of disbelief. We have to understand that these guys are not under contract. By no means should we mistake that. I don't think in storyline, we're going to keep it kayfabe. Why would the WWE want to enlist the talents of the Wyatt Six? Or they're already under contract. If we're going down the route that it is Dexter, Joe, Rowan, Nikki, I mean, 3 out of 4 of those guys are already contracted to the WWE. Rowan just recently returned. So you can go that way. But they're an ominous threat. I think they should use them, sparingly. I don't think we should overuse them. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't even see them next week. I think we do. Obviously, you want to capitalize on the momentum that's built, but you want to use them every now and then. You don't want to overuse them. The saying is, less is more. The more we see them, the less special it is. But the less we see them, the more we clamor for them. And yeah, over time, people might get impatient. In the last couple of years or so, we've seen that. Look at the Cody Rhodes story. Look at the Chad Gable story. But both instances have proved over time, give us a little patience and we'll make it worth your while. The WWE has been doing so well in terms of their long-term story. And even if at the moment it may not seem perfect or it may not seem to our likings or our standards, they can always pivot and change it. I mean, look at what happened WrestleMania 40 this year. They pivot. Cody ended up becoming the champion anyway. I think it worked out because it gave us the final boss, The Rock, the latest incarnation of Dwayne Johnson. So give them time. And it's only been their first appearance since debuting. It's only going to go... I caught myself. I would say that it's only going to go up. But when you debut at an 11, I mean, like I said, these guys came in and destroyed the gorilla position. You're looking at talent. You're looking at executives. You're looking at backstage hands. all laid to waste. You saw blood on the walls. Guys, there's a debate that guys are being killed on TV. How do you go from there? Like, at this point, I'm expecting them to have that Wyatt 6 logo and crucify someone. And can you imagine crucifying someone on live TV nowadays? Oh my God, like back in the 90s when you had The Undertaker do it, it was already controversial. But nowadays, man, imagine. I mean, it's not going to happen. But I do think we're on this road to something. Because if that's how you start, we're in for some real dark stuff when it comes to this storyline. And it's like I said, I want to know what the motive is. I know they talked about bringing a massacre. People were warned. But when it comes to the first attack, and I don't mean what just happened on Raw, but their first target, who is it going to be? Why is it going to be them? And what is going to transpire? When you look at these supernatural gimmicks, it's important to remember that, the why. I would like to think that everyone has that why. Jason Voorhees, why does he do it? Well, he was drowned as a kid because the camp counselors at Camp Crystal Lake were neglectful. They were out doing things they shouldn't have been doing, and, homie drowned, and he wants to exact revenge on them. On top of that, spoiler alert, they did behead his mom. They decapitated her. There's your why. Freddy Krueger, he was burned alive by the parents of Elm Street. So his retaliation is, I'm going to go after the children of those parents that burned me alive. People say sometimes that crazy people do crazy things. But there's always a reason why. And the Wyatt 6, we might have an idea of why, but like I said, less is more. We only got to see them for 5 minutes? And I'm already clamoring for more. I cannot wait for what the WWE has in store for them. Like I said, I don't anticipate a match early on. We still have to develop these characters. We still have to develop their first feud. Who's to say they don't appear on Friday Night SmackDown? I don't think so. I think it's a Raw thing. But who's to say they don't? Anything can happen. Literally anything can happen in the WWE right now. I mean, you have TNA and WWE working together. You have them sending over stars to Japan. You have these storylines that are long-term, that have so much meaning. Anything can happen. Anything is possible, in the words of Kevin Garnett. Shout out to the Boston Celtics. But with that being said, I want to know what you guys are thinking. How did you guys react to the debut of the Wyatt 6? What are your excitement levels? Who do you want to see them interact with first? And what do you think of Chad Gable? Do you think they killed him off? I'm just joking. Obviously they didn't. But still, sound off in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the J Area Podcast, to the YouTube channel as we continue to grow. We're nearly at 1,000 subs. Can't thank you guys enough. I appreciate you all very much. With that being said, I will go and leave you guys. Thank you for stopping by on this episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.